Welcome to Webinar 1 for BSI version 7.2. We're going to go over the BSI EZ interface and changes to locations in this webinar. These changes were implemented to basically make the system easier to use for simple tasks such as withdrawing a specimen or adding one specimen at a time. Again, we will cover My Specimens interface and changes to locations as well as the right mouse button menu. Participants are muted, and I will address questions at the end after the demonstration. These changes are made for users in our small labs, but may be helpful for everyone. The intent was that most tasks would users for most tasks wouldn't have to work outside of the EZ interface, the locations in My Specimens tabs. Let me go ahead and show my screen. So I'm going to go to the My Specimens Manager. This is basically like an interactive search. What I see by default is all of the specimens that I have access to. Just to show you very quickly, I can edit my toolbars throughout the system. So this is probably particularly helpful in data entry where I have a lot of icons that I can show. So I can pretty much customize what tools I see in my toolbar just by moving them over and saving this dialog. Also, we've done a few things to tables throughout the system, like making the rows wider and alternate shading in order to help you read the specimen data, as well as you have the option of displaying images or not, and this is under user preferences. So I have some images for plasma and whole blood here. Okay. Again, My Specimens is basically an interactive search. It shows by default all of the specimens that I have access to. Like any table in the system, I can configure a view, so I can move columns around, I can hide show columns, set up a view, and then go to the view menu and save a default user view. A couple of things I'd like to point out on this manager is our keyword search, so you can type in a keyword here and perform a search. If you don't type anything into here, you could press the magnifying glass and it opens the quick search. The quick search you can add fields to. This is also in your user preferences. You can set up what your quick search looks like. And let me add a field. Let's see. Let's search on material type. So I can add what fields I want to see in my search, and then I can pick a material type. We'll see what eggs are here. To search on. The search opens in a different dialog. So again, the magnifying glass will open the quick search. If I type something in here, like my study, and press the magnifying glass, it'll use these keywords to search on. So again, the search opens in a different dialog. So that's the toolbar search and the quick search. You can do a lot of other things with the toolbar search as well by searching on specific fields. The next thing that you can do with this interface and anywhere throughout the system is create specimen groups. So what I can do is I can select specimens in this dialog that I want, or any other table, right-click on them, and say Add to My Specimens group. I can add to an existing group, or I can create a new group. And say OK. My group will get added here. Say OK. And what these groups do is they affect what's in the filter down here. So by default, my filter shows everything that I have access to view. And then I can change it to one of my other groups, so we can look at all the specimens in my study, for instance. If I, again, right mouse click on a specimen record, I can add it to a group from this table or any table, and I can also remove it from the group as well. Another new feature with the My Specimens interface here is the display. I can display data by specimen, so what we're looking at right now is specimen data. I can also display it by sample. You can configure a view for sample as well by hiding columns and saving a default view. So it shows a bunch of sample information here and then a count of the specimens, the number of specimens in the sample over here. And another thing I can do is show by subject. So I can show subject data here, and then over here on the right I have a count of the number of specimens by subject. Again, I can hide show columns, move stuff around, and then save default view. Other things that you can do, let's go back to by specimen. We've added a right mouse button menu options, and if I right click on a specimen, I can copy the specimen record to paste it elsewhere. I can view specimen data, so if I click on view specimen data, it'll open the specimen viewer with that particular specimen's data in. Then I can go through these tabs to see different levels, different types of data for that specimen. If I go to see all in sample, it'll open the specimen viewer with all of the specimens in that sample, and then again I can look at different information for each of the specimens. If I go to show location, it'll open the specimen viewer with the location data shown. And you can see there's a box grid down here with all kinds of data in it, and we'll get to that more in locations. Again, back to the right mouse button, I can go to report on. What this does is open the report selector dialog, and I can pick a report. I'm just going to pick a user-defined listing. So this is a quick way to generate a report and add some criteria to it. Let me open my listing up. And if I go to search, you can see that the BSI ID that I selected, the record that I selected, is already added to my search criteria. So it's a way of generating a really quick search and adding some criteria in there to begin with. Again, back to the right mouse button menu. We've already gone over adding to specimen groups and removing from the specimen groups. If I wanted to open a quick mod batch, I can go to Edit Specimen. And you can see here, this is a mod batch in a form. There are templates that you can associate for add and mod batches in your user preferences. And again, that's under Tools, User Preferences. So it opens with my template applied. And this is a form view, so I have it set so that if I'm editing one specimen at a time, it opens in the form view. I also have new template commands, such as generating a BSI ID. So it'll generate a BSI ID on the fly, and I'll show you those later, as well as putting in today's date or the current date and time. There are new template commands for these. I can go to Open in Editor and open this in the table, the data entry editor that we're all used to. Let me go ahead and close this. I can edit multiple specimens at a time. So if I select them and then right-click and then go to Edit Specimen, it's going to open in the table and apply my template. I can also toggle to the form view, and then you would tab through each record to go to the next record to edit it. And I would commit those just like I would a regular mod batch. So let's go to Edit Specimen and open in a table. And let me go ahead and show you these side by side. Change my view a little bit real quick. There we go. So here's my mod batch. If I wanted to add other specimens to it, I can simply click on a specimen record and drag it into the mod batch, and you can see the file has been added to the mod batch. You can click and drag now records into tables. So I can, let's do it again. I'll click from here, kind of hold down, and then drag it into the mod batch. So I can add specimens to my mod batch that way. I'm going to go ahead and close this mod batch and open up My Specimens again. Go back to the right mouse button menu. So we've gone over all of the ability to view specimen data different ways and report on it, being able to add to groups, being able to edit the specimen, open a mod batch on the fly in either a form or a table. Down here you have options to requisition the specimen. If I clicked on requisition specimen, it would open a requisition. Oh, I have a study password, which are not required, by the way. I just protected these so no one else would take them for my demo. And it basically opens a submitted requisition with my specimen that I picked included. So I can go, just like I'm used to doing, I can add tasks, so I can submit the requisition or complete the tasks. And if I go back again, so that's opening a requisition. I would then have to add my tasks. There are a couple of tasks that you can do right here from the right mouse button menu. I can destroy a specimen. I can ship a specimen, transfer out a specimen, and withdraw. Withdraw is a new task that we've added. It's similar to a ship, except it doesn't have a destination. The destination is the user pulling the specimen out. It's designed for the labs who have investigators who go to the freezers and pull one specimen or a couple specimens at a time. They're not really shipping them anywhere. The specimens are going to stay out of the system, and they're just taking them out and doing whatever they need to for them. The specimens may never go back into the system. Let me show you, they're all pretty much the same. You fill out the task properties and submit. I'll show you an example with the ship task. So I pick the specimens I want to ship. What opens is the task properties. I can fill in notes. I can pick a tracking number just like usual. I can pick a courier. I can put tests. I can click the email, send an email notification to the destination. And when I've had this filled out, I just press OK. And what's going on is the requisition is being created and submitted in the background for you. So we're basically doing everything we usually do, but doing it in the background. And I can say OK. And there's actually a requisition. If you were to look in history, there's a requisition associated with the ship that we just did. So you can always go back to the requisition that you created from the right mouse button task. So that's My Specimens very, very quickly. I do encourage you to get on beta and try it out. The next thing I'd like to cover in this webinar is changes to locations. So this is the Locations Manager. If you'll notice, there are no more buttons over here on the right. There's the toolbar search and access to the quick search, just like in My Specimens. And then there are toolbar options up here, and this is where you would get to all of your actions: add a new subcontainer, view, edit, delete, or edit subcontainers. You can also get to them from the tree. So if I right click on a location, I can see all my options for the location. A couple of things that we've added to the tree is the ability to add favorite locations or add to locations group. Locations group works just like My Specimen locations. I right click on the locations I've selected, and I can either add to an existing group or create a new group. And my specimens are added to the group. I can also select favorites. Let's see, if I'll select this rack as my favorites, and it puts a little star next to it. Any subcontainers are also added to my favorites. And the groups in my favorites are available down here in the filter for the tree. So right now the filter is set at all, to show all the locations. But if I just wanted to see my favorite locations, I could go here. And if I just wanted to see locations that I've saved to a group, I can change the filter. So it's just a way to filter the locations. Another thing that we've added is workbenches. Let's go to my workbench. Let's see. Here's my workbench. Notice it's already part of my favorites. The workbenches are 10 by 10 boxes. The specimens, you can add to them. It's meant to be by user. The specimens still have a vial status of in, so they can be requisitioned. In fact, you could just right-click on them if I had specimens here and perform tasks on them. If somebody were to go through and create a traditional requisition and try to add a specimen from a workbench that's not theirs, they would get a warning message saying, this is on Jen's workbench, are you sure you want to add it? So these, again, are just user spaces to put specimens that they may want to put aside or work on later. You can see it's under workbenches. It's everybody who has a user account for this repository. And then, so those are changes to the tree. Another change is the ability, if I right-click on a freezer or a rack or a box, I can reserve for a study. So this is my default study, Jen's Demo Specimens, or it's the study that this freezer is already reserved for, and I can apply it to all subcontainers. So I can reserve it for a study, and what's going to happen is if somebody tries to add specimens to the container that don't belong to the study, they're going to get a warning saying that this container or the subcontainers was reserved for the study. Again, you can reserve any level, and you have the option if you're doing a freezer or rack to also reserve the subcontainers for that particular study. So again, right-click, reserve for study. See, this one already has my study applied to it. If I wanted to take off the reservation, I just simply delete the study and say OK. So that's changes to the tree. If you noticed, I clicked on the box, and what you're seeing, if the box has specimens in it, you're seeing the box grid with a whole bunch of data in it. This data is the data that you can display here is also in the user preferences. So tools, user profile, preferences. Location preferences, and I believe in the last webinar I'll go over all these user preferences Most of them are already there. We've added some new ones. I just want to kind of remind you that they're there, and it's a good way to configure how your session's going to look in BSI, what your client's going to look like. But down here it says data displayed in box layout cells. I can pick what values are displayed in my box layout cell and even what's displayed for them. For material type I'm displaying the image, but I could also show the code or the formatted value. I could show plasma instead of a picture of plasma. So again, tools, user profile, preferences. So right now what I want to see in my box is I have it looks like my BSI ID, my study, my current label, the material type, the volume and volume unit, and also the number of falls, and I believe that's my subject ID. So this is my box grid, and if I right click on a specimen in my box grid, I can see that I have most of the same options that I did under My Specimens. There are a couple additional ones. The one is add specimen and aliquot specimen. So I can actually aliquot a specimen. Right now you have to aliquot into the same box and you create one child at a time. Let me show you how that works. So if I want to use this as my parent, I right click on it, go to aliquot specimen, and then I click in an empty cell, and I'll get only the options that apply to empty cells. And since I've aliquoted, I can say create child files here. So I can just add a child here. Apparently that specimen has warnings, so it's going to open up the or it's reserved, the dialog. Let me find a specimen that's in. Let's try this guy. If there are any problems with any of these tasks, what we'll do is we'll send you right to the requisitions editor, and you go through the requisition the old-fashioned way. Specimen, or sorry, create child file. Pick the wrong option. All right, I'm going to find one that's in, I promise. I know I can use my specimen viewer to view the specimen data. So this one's in. All right, so I'm going to create an aliquot. So I go to aliquot specimen. I pick the cell that I want to go in, create child files here, and what opens, again, if there's a problem, it opens the requisition editor, and you'd have to go through the requisition the good old-fashioned way. But if I'm successful and there are no problems, no warnings, the file status is in for my parent, I can pick a box grid and I can create the child there. So I would just do what I usually do and fill in the child data. Notice I'm just going to copy from parent to get data in there really quickly. You know, you would decrement your parent volume, add data for your child. Notice that the location's already filled in. And then once I have all that, I can press commit. It's going to create my batches just like before, give me all the warnings that I have set in my preferences. My batches were successful, and you can see that the child is, I don't want to cancel anything, the child has been created in that box cell. Other things that I can do for empty cells is I can add a new specimen. So if I click on an empty cell and say add a new specimen, my batch is being saved beforehand. It's basically creating a data entry batch in the background. It's being saved because I have template actions that require the batch to be saved, such as finding the next available BSI ID, which is great if you don't really care what your BSI ID is. It's our unique identifier, but you have other ways to identify your specimens, and you just want the system to grab the next one that's not used. That's a great template command to use. So I'm going to go ahead and open it. It opens in my template that I have selected in my user profile. You can see it's generated a BSI ID for me. It's generated the date received. It used another template command for today's date to put in the date received. And I just fill in whatever required data is there. Notice that the cell is highlighted in red, and now the error, instead of having an error table, is below the cell in this dialog. So I fill in my data, and then I can go ahead and commit my batch. And I get my messages just like usual, and if I go back to locations, I can see that that specimen was added there. Other options, and since this one is in, let's use this one from the right mouse button menu, are again destroy. I can destroy a specimen, ship out a specimen from the box, transfer out specimens, withdraw. So if I just wanted to pull this specimen, I'll give you an example of one of these tasks. I'll do withdraw. The task properties open. I would fill in task properties and then just say OK. The specimen record would update. It would be out, and after this box is refreshed, you can see that it's no longer included in the box. The location is cleared for it. So that is that are the changes to the location management. Let's see. One more thing I'd like to show you is that you can, if you click on a specimen record and hold down your left mouse key, and you can drag it to another cell. And you can move specimens that way. So you have to click, you really have to kind of hold the mouse key down for a minute, a second, and then drag. We don't want to make it too easy to do. So those are the changes, the easy changes, very, very quickly. Again, I encourage you to go online, go in the beta database. You should have gotten an email with that information, and test it out for yourself. And please feel free to send us any feedback. Your feedback is always welcome. Thank you for your attention and your time.